What's going on, everybody? Evan from I Quit My Band here, back in the reaction zone, and today we're doing something a little different. Today we're doing another tier list video, but this time we are ranking the films of Paul Thomas Anderson. I know what you're saying. Evan, this is a music review show. What do you guys know about movies? Well, in addition to quitting my band, I also quit being a filmmaker. So I feel that this failure makes me uniquely qualified to rate one of America's greatest living directors. I'd love to talk about movies on the show, but JJ has never seen Fight Club, and Nate watches a lot of movies, but it's mostly Wilson brother vehicles from 02 to 09. That's kind of his wheelhouse. So talking about movies on the show would just be me quoting Glengarry Glen Ross to myself. So I said, fuck the machine. I can do that alone in my room.
Fuck the machine.
So here we are ranking the films of Paul Thomas Anderson. So I just went to go see One Battle After Another. Is it the film of the year? Is it the film of the decade? We're going to see. We're going to see how it stacks up to the rest of his filmography. Starting with PTA's first movie, Hard Eight. I like Hard Eight a lot. I think it's a great debut, incredible cast. I really like the dynamic between Philip Baker Hall and John C. Reilly. Philip Baker Hall being like this hardened, wise gambler, hustler guy, and John C. Reilly, this like idiot surrogate son. And the way that PTA reveals why Philip Baker Hall is taking this guy under his wing and trying to show him the way, even though he's probably never going to find the way. It's by no stretch PTA's best movie, but as his first movie, it already shows that this dude like has the goods. You know, that opening sequence coming up into the coffee house is incredible. The way he shoots that first conversation and the way that he finishes it at the end with just that little piece of blood coming up on the cuff. I mean, great shit. I don't return to Hard Eight all that often, but I think about the crap scene from Hard Eight literally every day. Philip Seymour Hoffman as like this hayseed, mulleted gambler.
Oh man, you play that game, don't you? Oh shit.
Overall, as a movie, I think it's like, you know, if 99.9% of filmmakers made Hard Eight, it would be their best movie. And for PTA, it wasn't even the best movie that he put into theaters that year. So great debut, but I'm thinking overall, a C for Hard Eight.
The fuck?
Moving on, next movie, Boogie Nights. Hell yeah, dude. I mean, it's Boogie Nights. From the moment I saw this movie, it was the greatest thing that I've ever seen. By no means PTA's most original movie. I mean, it's like if Scorsese and Altman split an 8-ball of coke and made a porno, but that rules. The Sister Christian Jesse's Girl sequence with Alfred Molina in a bathrobe while the Asian guy's lighting the firecrackers. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. You know, Boogie Nights obviously owes a lot to Scorsese and Altman, but I still feel like Anderson does his own thing with these, because I don't know if Altman or Scorsese in their like big tapestry movies is as generous to their characters as Anderson is. Roller Girl could be a nothing character, but giving her the backstory from the kid in class ending up in the limo, and then Buck, who is kind of like a comedic character, but giving him like that heartbreaking scene in the bank, and then the shootout, and then building Buck's super stereo world. You know, Scotty J, you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Scotty J is like this like clown, but he is also tragic. There's a lot of like tragic clowns in this movie. You know, you got Little Bill, you got Scotty, you got Buck's kind of like the one clown that like makes it out. Like he's kind of a goof the entire movie, but he, you know, he gets stereo super world. He's winning. Reed Rothschild does become a magician. So that's kind of a lateral move. I mean, Boogie Nights is iconic. It's a movie that has entered kind of just like the pantheon of your average cinephile, and even people who aren't cinephiles. I know people who like don't fuck with art film that love Boogie Nights, and I know why, because it rocks. And for that reason, we're going S tier. All right, next movie, Magnolia, PTA's third movie, and probably his most obviously flawed. It's too long. He even says it's too long. There are plot threads among like the dozen that we're given that don't resolve. Like everything with the worm is kind of introduced and then forgotten about. And there's probably a couple other plot threads that could be cut out completely. And if you just focus on the Earl Partridge, Tom Cruise stuff, you probably still have a great movie. That being said, I fucking love Magnolia. I saw Magnolia when I was 15 and it absolutely blew my mind. Like, it's just one of those movies that when I saw it, it completely changed what I thought movies could even be. It's so creative. It's so propulsive, so operatic. I mean, it really feels like just like a 29-year-old guy trying to wrap his hands around the entire world. And I gotta say, he comes pretty goddamn close. From like the urban legend vignettes that open it up to our like dozen main characters stopping to sing an Amy Mann song. And then to finish it off with it raining fucking frogs. Tom Cruise is Frank T.J. Mackey, by far his best performance of all time.
Respect the cock.
The score is incredible. John Bryan, I'm a John Bryan truther. As good as the Johnny Greenwood scores are, there's a couple John Bryan scores that I prefer. One of the reasons I love movies the way that I do is because I saw Magnolia at the right time. And I will say, as I return to it, I can see some of the flaws that other people see in it. You know, maybe he bit off a little more than he can chew, but damn, do I love this movie. This might be controversial, but I'm going to put Magnolia in A tier. Next movie, Punch Drunk Love. It's such an outlier in PTA's filmography. You know, almost all of his movies are over 2 hours, many of them coming close to 3 hours. And here's just this 90-minute weirdo, surreal, minimalist rom-com. And it's one of my favorite things that he's ever done. The idea to take the Adam Sandler man-child with a short temper comedic persona and explore it in like the humanity and detail that he does is genius. I mean, the scene where he destroys the bathroom and then lies about it to the waiter is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And the conversation before that is great with the DJ Justice and then him being like, my sister is a liar. You know, in the pantheon of Philip Seymour Hoffman performances, Dean Trumbull, the Mattress Man, has to be number one. The phone call between those two is, I watch that scene once a month.
Are you threatening me, Dick?
This is probably also my favorite score in any Paul Thomas Anderson movie. You know, John Bryan coming off that like big operatic, beautiful Magnolia score and then getting into like this weird, tinkering, anxiety-ridden score. My all-time theater-going experience was a few years ago. I was in New York and John Bryan did a live score to Punch Drunk Love with the full orchestra, and then Norah Jones came out and sang the song from Popeye. Incredible. I don't know if I can put this on the same tier as Boogie Nights. I don't know if it quite reaches those same heights. I think this might be my favorite PTA movie, but I'm going to put it A tier ahead of Magnolia. Next film, There Will Be Blood. This might be the greatest American film ever made. I know that that's high praise, but look, I've seen them. I've seen them all. Citizen Kane, seen it. Godfather, I've seen it. Cabin Boy with Chris Elliott, I've seen them all, okay? This is Anderson reaching an entirely new level creatively. Like, as great as those first four films are, There Will Be Blood is just in another stratosphere. I think it's perfect. And for what it's trying to do and feel perfect is unbelievable. The central performance by Daniel Day-Lewis is the best that I've ever seen. He fully becomes Daniel Plainview. And like as repulsive of a character as he is so goddamn magnetic. You can't take your eyes off of him. Bob Ellsworth's photography, which was great on Boogie Nights and Magnolia, is on a whole nother level on There Will Be Blood. The way he captures the landscapes, the camera moves become so much more subtle and like eerie at times. It still has some of the themes that Anderson has continued to explore, like relationships and the father-son dynamic, but then to also try to make a film about the birth of industry and America and greed and religion, and it be so pitch perfect. I could have never imagined that the guy who had just made Punch Drunk Love was capable of this. This is, to me, him announcing that, you know, not only am I a great young filmmaker, I'm one of the greatest filmmakers that has ever lived. The whole subsection with his brother is like heartbreaking and great. And the writing's incredible. Like the way that he realizes that his brother's a fraud is, talking about the Peachtree Dance. And that's just the moment of vulnerability we see him give up, and he can't live with it. And the ending, that like Kubrick shot in the bowling alley, I'm finished. It's as good of a movie as I've ever seen. I mean, easy S tier. Next movie, The Master. Now, The Master, I don't know if there is a film that I will ever be more excited to see than The Master. And I think it's great, with some caveats. The photography is incredible, shot on 70 millimeter. And it also marks like a real shift in the way that he thinks about images on screen. Like, he's less worried about what the camera is doing than what is in the frame. And there are so many frames from this movie that are like brilliant, just absolutely picturesque. One of the best Philip Seymour Hoffman performances ever. Lancaster Dodd is an incredible character. He feels like such a salesman. And then I love like the moments you see his anger rise to the top. Him calling that guy pig fuck.
If you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask pig fuck?
I'm not the biggest Joaquin Phoenix fan, but Freddie Quell is probably his best performance. I think one of the things that I don't like about Joaquin Phoenix is it feels like he's carried his Freddie Quellisms into other roles, and it makes that performance feel a little less special. Like when the Joker feels like Freddie Quell, I don't like Freddie Quell as much. I remember watching The Master in the theaters, and for the first 2 hours being like, I think this might be another like greatest film of all time. And then the last 20 minutes happen. And, I've watched this film 5 times. I still don't quite understand the last 20 minutes of this movie. And I haven't heard anybody explain it really in a way that makes sense to me. And maybe there is something more psychological and deep going on in those last 20 minutes, but it just feels like it becomes like an entirely different film. From the moment that Freddy rides out into the desert on the motorcycle, him going back to visit his old love, and then really the scene that's like the toughest for me to swallow is the slow boat to China. And like how emotional it is, like Lancaster Dodd's crying, Freddy's almost crying. And I do not have an emotional attachment to these two characters. Like, I'm very interested in these characters. Like, I am completely invested in their behavior, but there's nothing about them that I was like, man, I just hope they really figure it out. I know this might be controversial because I know people love The Master. Some think it's his best movie, but it just doesn't reach the same peaks as some of the other stuff. So I'm going B tier for The Master. The next movie, Inherent Vice. This was the only PTA movie that when I walked out of the theater the first time, I thought that was a dud. I'd never read any Thomas Pynchon at this point. I remember hearing it was like The Big Lebowski, and I'd read enough noir to be like, okay, so the plot pieces are not going to 100% make sense, but like, you'll get the vibe of what's going on. I didn't realize that Thomas Pynchon was like a whole other level of not understanding what the fuck is going on. But since rewatching it a few times and having read more Thomas Pynchon, I kind of gotten the vibe of like, really, you're not going to be able to understand what's going on for the most part. Just go with it. And the more I was able to go with it, the more I am able to enjoy it. Just like taking in each scene on its own. There is a lot to really like in Inherent Vice. The look of it is very unique. I think this is the last time he had Bob Elswit. I remember hearing they got into a bit of a row on this one. But I really like his photography in it. It's cool seeing actors that he never really worked with before, like Owen Wilson and Reese Witherspoon. Martin Short, who is the best part of the movie for me. Josh Brolin as Bigfoot is hilarious. His line, "No Cielo Drive" for Bigfoot is so good. One of the things that I think is holding Inherent Vice back, in my opinion, is how reverent it is to Thomas Pynchon. Having read a good bit of Thomas Pynchon at this point, his sense of humor is just kind of black licorice for me. He has kind of like this whiz-bang, whoopee cushion, silly-ass style of comedy. I find PTA's style of comedy so much more effective. PTA's comedy hits me directly in my funny bone, whereas Pynchon's sense of humor hits me directly in my I want to shove whoever wrote this into a locker bone. Upon reappraisal, I do think that Inherent Vice is a really, really good movie, but I don't think it comes close to PTA's other work. So I'm feeling C tier on Inherent Vice. Next, we have Phantom Thread. Phantom Thread is great. It probably reminds me the most of The Master, and just, it's a little more buttoned down. The photography is a bit more stately. Daniel Day-Lewis is great in this movie. I think Vicky Krieps is even better. Like, her character is a bit harder to pin down than Woodcock's. Like, Woodcock, type A, perfectionist, striver. Whereas Vicky Krieps has to, like, really hit a lot of different bases with her character. She has to be defiant, come off as, like, a simple country girl, but also have this type of, like, depth and integrity to her to be able to stand up to all these, like, high-class, hoity-toity British people and make that believable and endearing, and she completely does. Like, she's amazing in this movie. Amazing photography, great score. I really like Johnny Greenwood's score in this, like, kind of lending itself to the period, and it's like more piano. Really, the only thing holding me back from putting this up into A tier is the ending. It feels similar to The Master to me in that way. Like, everything going up to them getting married feels like perfectly paced, perfectly set up, and then everything after that kind of feels rushed. And then when we get to the final scene where he realizes that he's being poisoned and chooses to poison himself anyway, it doesn't 100% feel earned. Like, he is so excited to have diarrhea. Like, I get the ending, and I think that it makes thematic sense. Like, the power dynamics between them, him making the choice to poison himself, he still feels like he has some level of control, even though he is giving it up completely by, shitting on the toilet for 3 days. But it just felt like it was a little rushed to get there. That last 20 minutes doesn't sit together quite as perfectly as, like, the 2 hours that preceded it. Still think it's great. I still don't think anybody else in the world could have made it other than PTA, but I'm going to go B tier, just ahead of The Master. All right, next movie, Licorice Pizza. Maybe the most charming and sweet movie about a pedophile I've ever seen. I really like Licorice Pizza. It's a movie that I've rewatched and have continued to enjoy it on each rewatch. I think the first time I saw it, it was like a little light, and I still think it's a little light in comparison to the other movies he's made. But the things that I love about the movie is it does feel like a return to an earlier style of Anderson filmmaking. Like, the camera work feels more in place with, like, Boogie Nights and Punch Drunk Love than it does The Master and Phantom Thread. I would say more than any other movie, maybe other than Inherent Vice, Licorice Pizza just feels like a collection of scenes, and the central throughway of the narrative is not that strong. It's kind of like a fun valley hangout movie. And that being said, it is a fun hangout valley movie, and I do really like it. There's a lot of great scenes. All the John Peters stuff is great. It is weird that he lifted, like, a scene directly out of Taxi Driver, her working at the political office, and then the guy outside and her talking to the guy that she's working with. Where that ends up leading is one of my favorite things in the movie, with Benny Safdie needing to call her so that the reporter doesn't find out that he's gay. That's a great scene. It's just weird that he would lift something directly out of Taxi Driver. But that does also remind me of old Anderson, who was, like, pulling so much from Scorsese. I think Alana Haim's good. I think Hoffman's son is also really good. They do have chemistry, but just the way that the characters are written, there are times where I have had about enough of both of them, Like, the will they, won't they. I'm not, like, on the edge of my seat, will they, won't they. I'm just kind of like, would you two figure this shit out so we can get on with it? So, yeah, I like Licorice Pizza. I think it's probably bottom tier. I'm going to go C, put it with Inherent Vice and Hard 8. All right, our last movie, his newest movie, One Battle After Another. Now, pretty much everything since There Will Be Blood I have thought is either really good or great, but I can't say that I've loved a Paul Thomas Anderson movie since There Will Be Blood. With that being said, I fucking love One Battle After Another. Like, on one hand, it's his most grounded and realistic film, especially the first 45 minutes. There's like some cinema verite and like Battle of Algiers stuff going on. They even mentioned Battle of Algiers. It's, you know, contemporary America and like the political realities of today. And on the other hand, it's like his most ridiculous and surreal movie. There's like boner jokes and pratfalls and like this white supremacist secret society that worships Santa Claus. And somehow he's able to balance those two tones and it just fucking works. I was initially really worried about this movie because he based it on Vineland, another Thomas Pynchon book. And I thought we were going to get like Inherent Vice Part 2. I think the smartest thing he did was use like Thomas Pynchon as a jumping off point, abandoning the particulars and then building his own characters and plot from there, because you get the best of both worlds. You get like the amazing Paul Thomas Anderson characterization and dialogue and humor, and he's still able to retain all like the Pynchonian paranoia, conspiracy, and the way that power moves throughout the world. It's my favorite Leonardo DiCaprio performance. Not the hugest Leo guy. And I think if Tarantino and Anderson have taught us anything, is he plays a better dolt than he does like your typical leading man. Sometimes in some of the Scorsese stuff where he has to play this like very interior, dark character, I just don't buy it. As a stoner in a bathrobe, 100%. That I know that guy. I think if there's a movie that one battle after another remind me of the most of his, it's Magnolia, and it's just in the breadth of creativity. Like the second act in this movie really reminds me of Magnolia because the score just is relentless and you're watching this action chase scene play out over this like insanely huge scale and it just keeps going and going. But it mainly reminds me of Magnolia in just, it feels like a guy who has sharpened all these creative tools and he is spreading his arms as wide as humanly possible to make a film that you have never seen before. Sean Penn is so good as Colonel Lockjaw. His character is like a menacing buffoon. It's like a mix of like Elmer Fudd and Colonel Kurtz, and he plays it absolutely perfectly. There's a scene where he gets his office that is as hard as I've laughed in a movie in years. At the end of the 3 hours, I just immediately wanted to see it again. I don't know if I'm ready to put it in S tier just yet. I don't know if I can put it with Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood, but safely A tier. I think maybe just a hair behind Punch Drunk Love now. Who knows? In a couple years, it might be better. What's your favorite PTA movie? Did I rank some too high, too low? What did you think of one battle after another? Let us know. This is Evan from IQMB. I'll see you later.